But I am so excited. For folks who don't know me, my name's Libby Jameson. I'm one of the Homefront Rising organizers and a past president of the Military Spouse JD Network. And I'm so excited to be here launching our Homefront Rising series, Your Military Spouse Cabinet. So what we really wanted to do was help folks think about how to engage now that the election is over, the campaigns are over, we're in a new election cycle, and we want spouses to start thinking about, are you going to run? Are you going to seek out an appointment? Hopefully those gears are already turning, but we want to help build that network and build those connections for you, and make sure you have those opportunities. I do want to say a disclaimer off the top. Homefront Rising and MSJDN are both nonpartisan, non-political entities, not affiliated with any party or any candidate. So obviously we're here talking to folks who are engaged in that space, but our organizations are not political or partisan, and we have a long history of talking to folks on all sides of the aisle. With that, I'm really excited to introduce Tatiana Matta, who is a Homefront Rising alum, came to the first ever Homefront Rising way back in the day. And everybody. And then ran for Congress in 2018, and most recently served as advisor on the Biden campaign. So I'm not going to spend time reading a long bio, but Tatiana, and I should say, and an Air Force spouse, obviously. One of the most important reasons we want to talk to you is because your connection to the military community, and you understand how difficult it is navigating this career path as a military spouse. So I'll give you a couple of minutes if you want to do add on anything I missed from your introduction. Just say hi to folks.
Hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Like Libby said, I'm so grateful for the military community. If it wasn't, for them, I actually couldn't have ran. So there's a lot of things I want to talk today about. I'm excited that we can have this candid conversation. Normally, like I was saying, it's a little bit more structured, but this one is so nice because we can actually be very honest about the difficulties and the challenges and also the good part of running for office. So I'm excited to be here. I am a mother of a 16-year-old boy named Kevin. He was my bedrock. I think I called him deputy campaign manager because he was that to me. He was young when I ran. He was in middle school, but one of the most amazing experiences having my son through it. We'll share why. My husband was deployed when I ran, so he was very instrumental in that run. So yeah, I'm a mother, military spouse. We've been in 11 years. We come from Puerto Rico, and having past difficulties when I was little, we had a home and it burned, so we had to utilize the community to kind of advance in life. So I always give back everywhere I go, and military life does that to you as well. Every time you go to a different community, you always want to give back in some sort. So I think running for office was that meaningful way for me to do that, right? To continue giving in another way. So we'll have that discussion.
Yeah. So one of the first things I want to talk about is your decision. Like I said, you came to Homefront Rising in 2014, and then ran in 2018. So kind of talk us through what happened in that time. How did you decide to run?
So after the training, for sure, I gave it thought. I decided to support a nonprofit called Military Spouse Advocacy Network. I worked with Tatianas Castillo to advance the issues of military spouses, kind of put some structure in the organization and volunteer my time as a vice president. So I did that for a few years. We were in Wright-Patterson when I became key spouse and then key spouse mentor. So I served like that, helping, supporting Operation Homefront. There's a lot of organizations that we support when we're spouses. And I had my fair share of supporting organizations. So when we moved to Edwards Air Force Base, it was the second time we moved to California. California is very special to us just because it was our first duty station. So it's very dear to our hearts, a state that we love. But we were, normally you don't get the state twice so soon. We were like, okay, so this is a sign. We got California again. This time it was Central Valley, California. It was Edwards Air Force Base. And, there I thought, well, I've worked really hard to support my community through organizations. Now, let me see what I can do in the political side, right? Just go out to a normal political meeting, like a monthly meeting. I hadn't been engaged as much because, again, I was engaged in the nonprofit side. But I decided to go and start building those networks within the political area. I remember back then I was doing some some trainings for women who were trying to run. And I remember I said to this young woman, if you have the skills and the passion and the resources to run, just go for it, because you will make an impact. You will have a seat at the table where other people are discussing issues. Just go and do it. And then and this is like, I tell you, that was a pivotal moment. We were literally in the Kern County Central Committee. There were a lot of people talking who was going to be the next one to run against Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Speaker and leader. And then everyone was talking about the next man who was going to run. And I said, wait a minute, I think, we should be talking about who's going to do this, but not specify who. It has to be a certain person. I think it has to reflect the diversity of the community. And I went home and talked to my husband and my son. I knew then, as I tell you all here, that it was going to be hard, because having the support of my husband didn't mean that he was supporting me in the campaign. He was just saying, Tatiana, I love you, and I know you can do this. Just go for it. But he can't. Our spouses can't be vocal about it. They can't share. You go vote for Tatiana right now. There's limitations that they have within the military. So I knew that coming in. I never expected that he was going to get deployed after the primary. That I didn't know when I decided to run. So that was a major difficulty, but again, we made the best out of it. But deciding to run wasn't the hard part. I don't think that was the hard part. I think obviously making the connections and the networking, that took time, but it was something we already do. Every time we move to a new location, in order to be successful there, we always have to do this. We have to go and talk to the school, other parents in the school, and we go to for us, the Airman Family Readiness Center, and then we look for resources there. And then, there's things that we already do. We're just translating that into the political world, right? So I started building my network with the leaders of the party, introducing myself in every meeting, talking to people who were coming into those meetings and saying, hey, I'm Tatiana, I'm running for Congress. It was very simple. Just this is why I'm running. I'm a military spouse. And I was literally interested in veterans issues, military family issues. And it's a federal level issue, right? We need more military spouses and veterans and people who understand our issues, because we can advocate better for them. So I think people really had a good reaction to a military spouse running. I did see a lot of respect for that. So if you're out there thinking that, you want to run, there's a lot of respect for it. And, I decided to run. Again, challenges came in. There's a lot of things that we as spouses have to go through, but it was the best experience, I think, of my life, for sure.
So can you, hang on, let me try and fix.
Trying to fix my audio here. Can you talk a little more about your military spouse status and whether you think that hurt, you're saying people have respect for it. I remember a conversation we had one time where you were saying it's easy to get sidetracked in that in like an interview that might be all they want to talk about. So how do you pivot from that issue? So can you talk a little bit more about, military spouse status? Do you think that helps or hurts when you run?
Yeah, well, it definitely, again, it's a challenge just because not a lot of, for example, not a lot of active duty military spouses have ran. So coming into this without, not a lot of us have done it before, it's always a challenge, right? Because you want to talk to people who've done it before. My first challenge was, for example, when you do fundraising at a congressional level, you want to make sure that you're using your home, for example, to do fundraisers. Well, when you live on military installations, you can't do that because you can't fundraise on your home. So I had to utilize friends, in the area, supporters in the area, but that took a little time, right? So looking back at that, having, probably I would have done that a little earlier, just because again, that initial money was so important. There's obviously, again, the support of the family. There's a lot of spouses when the women run, there's a lot of spouses who are there supporting every time. My husband had a full-time job. And then, like I said, after the primary, he went to South Korea. So I was with my son who was in middle school, and then my mom who had medical challenges too. So having that, and then the nearest city when I ran was like the nearest most populated city was an hour and 40 minutes out, and I had to go every day. So there's a lot of challenges there. Sometimes you're very cautious. Like in my opinion, I was very cautious about what I did because I thought it could affect my husband in any way. It didn't, but you never know, right? You never know who's looking at your social media and stuff. And I always was very, my campaign was never about, trashing anyone or it was about the issues and what my experiences can contribute in that position. That was always my line, right? There's other candidates that don't do that. And I think that's where maybe you can have a little bit of difficulty there, within the military. But I always had good experience with people. They always asked about my husband. And I think that was what you were mentioning. I had an interview with a local paper. It was a very important paper. We got a double endorsement, never happened. So that was good. It's kind of a double because it was, it wasn't the first time they said, oh, this person we're endorsing. So it was good. But at the same time, I had an interview where he asked me, the spouse of the incumbent, it's going to be there in ribbon cuttings and, how do you feel that, your husband's not there? And I'm like, the first thought was like, are you serious asking for that? I'm the female, but I will be the congressional member if the people elect me. Now, my thought was, my husband's serving the country and he's overseas and he might not be able to, I'm paraphrasing here, but he might not be able to do ribbon cutting, but I think he's supporting our country enough, something like that. And, those kind of things, they always ask me, oh, what does your husband do? And you might have only 5 minutes for the interview. So you have to try to wrap it up and, you want to answer because I'm very proud for my husband. But people are very interested in the military side of your family. And since it doesn't come from me, they ask about my husband a lot. So I had to work through that a little bit. I learned to pivot quickly to the issues. And if they were asking about my husband, then I talk about veterans issues or military family issues or why I decided to run for office. It's because I'm a military spouse, and thank you for asking that kind of pivoting. But it was hard at the beginning. It was hard, I'm not gonna lie. But again, having more spouses who run and share these experiences, it's going to be easier for us to keep running, right, for office at different levels. It could be congressional, city council, mayoral races, clerks, state legislatures. I think we're gonna get to a point that we're gonna feel more comfortable running if we start, building again this cabinet, because we have more networks to talk to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the plan anyway. So we really appreciate you coming back and sharing, because I do think that is such an important piece of it, is sharing these stories and saying you can do this and here's how, and here's how I learned what not to do or here's what I think works really well. And so that's a really important piece of it, and I hope that's what we can provide here with Homefront Rising. So can you talk a little bit, post-campaign, what was that like, and how did you shift? You've obviously stayed in this world, PCS again, just how have you been making it work as a military spouse in a political career post running for office?
Yeah, well, I decided that I wasn't gonna run after my husband came back. Everyone asks you, once you run for office, they ask you, are you running again? Because we got 70 something, I think it's 74,000 votes with $100,000. So if you think about it, we actually did a ground game to build a structure. We got to a point that we understood that it was really hard to win the race, of course, but we wanted to build a structure for the future of the counties. We had 3 counties there, and actually build up, because it was a lot of votes with a little bit of money. So we did the groundwork. So for the rest of the next candidate to run, they just have to build from that. And I think I did my part on that. But I decided not to run again because again, my husband was for a year in South Korea. He was off. He was moved to Massachusetts, and I decided to be with my family. It was a personal decision. I could have stayed, and we could have done, from state to state, but this time I decided I want to be with my family. It's the right moment for us to be together. And I had no issues. People did not tell me, oh my goodness, you left us. No, because again, it's what we do, right? We've moved. I did my part in running for something I believed in. If I would have won, of course, I would have been there. And it was my job to stay there and serve for the 2 years, but I didn't. So I had to, choose my family and then move to Massachusetts. So again, and those connections are still there. Right after the campaign, I decided to support the island that I love, Puerto Rico, just because they faced a really bad Hurricane Maria when I was running. So I have family down there, and I know the devastation it caused. So I said, well, I'm going to go and commute, between DC and Massachusetts, because it's not that much. And then just help as much as I can the leaders over there, right, of Puerto Rico when they go over there. So I did that, helped train Canada women running for office with Vote Run Lead. I work as much as I could to continue the process of being engaged, but I got a call from one of the Biden staff, Cristobal Alex, who's a great friend, and I said, hey, I'm here to support as much as I can. I started as a volunteer in the Biden campaign a lot of months ago. And I started building, in their campaign, I started building the Puerto Rico Coalition. When I say that, it's building in the island, that leadership, the co-chairs, the structure, because we do have a primary in Puerto Rico, even though we don't vote in the presidential, we have a primary. So that we wanted to make sure we won the primary. So building that union connection, leaders, nonprofits, just base democratic support in the island. And then after that, I became the senior advisor for Puerto Rico. And then 6 months ago, a little bit less, I became the national Latino advisor for the Biden-Harris campaign, and helping again, most importantly, the Latino community, helping and supporting, giving advice on what things do we do, and then working with Laura Jimenez, who's the National Latino Director, Engagement Director, and just supporting as much as I can. And the coolest part about all this is I could work with Leo Cruz. He's a director of Veterans and Military Families. He's a Latino, and we had a lot of Latino veteran events together. So to me, that was heaven. I was like, yay, I can do my job and then work with veterans and the military family. So I was very grateful to have that collaboration. In the Biden campaign, I think for the first time we did a coalitions outreach. So we had a lot of the communities work together.
Uh-oh. Tatiana, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're frozen.
That's what we do. Every time we move somewhere and do something, we volunteer. So.
We lost you a little bit there at the end for a second, but
So you're saying that it comes in from volunteering, right? That's what we do. Normally we set up and say, how can we be helpful? That's what I did. I asked, how can I be helpful? They put me on the first Spanish video, and then from there, I started supporting. So.
Awesome. And so I mean, we have a few minutes left here. I think we've already covered a lot of ground, but advice in general from you for military spouses who are interested in, especially in running for office, because I think you're such a great example of, landing in a duty station, rolling up your sleeves and getting right to work. So it's possible, it's doable. We really want that message to get out there. But any general advice for spouses looking to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I can say that utilize the networking skills that you've built. The military life has taught us that. We've actually do this all the time. It's no different from what we do to help our schools. I volunteer for my child's school and the PTO. I mean, there's so many things we normally do. This is organizing work, right? Meal trains, stuff like that we normally do. This is exactly what political organizing means, right? We have to network and talk about to people that we don't know, and just to make sure that they're supporting, our campaign. I could say keep in contact. Like this kind of, this organization is very supportive of each other. I remember when I was running, one of the first people I called was Libby. And it's literally one of the first people I called. And it's just because we're, as military spouses, we face difficulties that other people don't. So don't ever think that calling me or any other Lindsay Simmons just ran. Like there's so many, and I love you, Lindsay, if you're watching or you're going to watch. You did amazing, and I absolutely am very proud of you. I talked to Lindsay a couple of months ago, and just having more active duty military spouses running, this is amazing. It's a great opportunity. But what I'm saying is just don't be afraid of connecting, sending an email or just a phone, just kind of getting out there and asking, okay, I'm going to do this. Can I have your support? And not necessarily, not even as partisan, right? Because yes, I'm a Democrat, but I think military spouses have this unique way of connecting with people that go out partisan. I never actually in my campaign spoke about partisan issues as much, if it makes sense, just because I was in a very conservative district. But the issues were very close. Like, we were talking about veterans issues, military family issues a lot. And I was trying to explain even to people who were conservative and I'm a Democrat, this is exactly what gets us together, right? Puts us right there in the middle to have these discussions. And I do that all the time in the military installations because we don't talk about politics. I was very clear on that at the beginning. When we go into the military facility, we just don't talk about it. So we don't know if our neighbor is Republican or a Democrat. We just help each other. So I think that's the kind of conversations I had. I think those initial conversations about, hey, I'm not here about talking about Democrats, Republicans. I'm here to talk about how to help you and get the things you need in a very effective way. How can we do that? And what are the issues? That kind of was always my approach, and it was very helpful. And actually, we got, like I said, 74,000 votes in a district that I hadn't lived before. Right. So at the beginning, I got a little bit of the, hey, she hasn't lived here before. I don't have these deep rooted connections. But no, the work does it for you. It dissipates that when they see you at every event, when they see you engage, when they get to know you, you do Facebook time, or you show your family, they know, what your heart is. And I think that's the difference. If they don't, of course, those things are going to come up. But I had no major problem with it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think the power of the network, that's what we're all here for, to support each other, and ensure that there are more military voices in office. So before we jump into questions, I just want to talk quickly if I can get my slides under control here. This is launching today. It's on it'll be on the Homefront Rising website very shortly, inspired in large part by Tatiana, who, after she ran, we were talking, and she was talking about, she kept the Veterans Campaign field manual in her car with her. And we were talking, can we have one? That is an incredibly useful tool. I would suggest everyone check out Veterans Campaign and the workshops they're doing. They have one coming up December 5th and 6th. And so we wanted to create something that spoke a little more closely to the spouse experience. So Tatiana is quoted in there. There's some hopefully great advice for everyone in there. So check that out. And then on November 30th, we will be talking about appointments federally and locally with Lindsay Rodman from the Leadership Council for Women in National Security. So definitely check that out. And with that, I am going to stop screen sharing. And if people have questions, I already see a couple in the comments. So let's see, was your husband able to help at all? I read the DoD directive. It seems like they can't even stuff envelopes if you're running for a canvassing position. Do you want to talk to that, Tatiana?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, he was doing a lot of, when he was here, because again, he was here only until the primary. He was just helping with my son, going to the basketball games, making sure that, just getting that part of the team together. And then my mom, he was very helpful with my mom. She has some medical condition. So he kind of hold the fort for me until I can do that. I mean, I've done it before when he's done, his training. So this was the time for him to do it, the other time around. I was in home for a long time. There's a lot of hours I had to travel, an hour 40 from city to city. So he was there to help me and support me that way. But no, he wasn't engaged in the campaign, and he's not very partisan at all. Like, he doesn't talk about he knows what's happening, but he doesn't talk about it, not even, at home. And I think we've kind of left it that way to make sure that we're keeping it, and, that's kind of our household model. But no, he didn't help much, no. And the other question, let me see, I think I saw it too.
Yeah, how did you deal with questions on whether or not you would be stationed in a location long enough to fulfill the term?
I got that question almost every time, almost. I got it, I think, in town halls. I did one town hall, in meetings and meet and greets. The only way I could say is, well, I'm focused on this campaign. I'm focused on serving the people of the 23rd Congressional, because that was the district I was running for. Throughout our life, we've served wherever we're needed. So if the people of the 23rd choose me to be their congressional member, I will be here for the full term. After that, of course, it's where the people need me to be. And if I'm reelected again, then I will continue serving. So that was my answer. And I think I was being honest because, again, you never know in this military life what we do. If I wasn't elected, of course, I decided to be with my family. So I didn't want to be dishonest there. But they understood that. Every time I said it, they're like, okay, yeah, that's reasonable. So.
Another question for spouses who are strangers to their duty station. You talked about this a little. What should they be doing to start engaging on those local levels?
Let me see.
In case they want to get to a point where they can run for a board of education, etc.
Or local levels, if you want to. So I was actually appointed to my local school board. That was I saw the opening right before I ran for Congress. I saw the opening and I said, well, I'm in Edwards. I'm a mother of a child in this school district. I might as well, help and support that way. I'm very passionate about education. So I decided to join. I put my application, they accepted me, and I got appointed to the school board. And I was a school board member for a little bit, and then I had to move, and I obviously had to resign. But I think that for local, it's more of those kind of opportunities, right? So you're going to see them when you PCS and you move. Just start looking for things that you're passionate about. In my case, again, was education and veterans and military family issues. So I got appointed to the school board because I just wanted to look information up and saw that opening and decided to go for it. And they appointed me. And then I served for the capacity. But then running for Congress was, what was I passionate about? Some people were telling me when I was deciding to run, they were like, oh, but why don't you run for Senate or state Senate or run for local city council? And I said, well, because the issue that I'm most passionate about, that I'm going to speak to someone and look them in the eye, is federal issues, right? It's military families, it's veterans, it's health, it's, criminal justice. There's a lot of things in my head that I want to support with. And I'm not escalating here, to do X, Y, and Z. So if I was passionate about, I don't know, like something to do with the locals, the clerk system, I would run for that because I think I would be more effective. I would be transmitting the information more effectively. Again, when you're running, it's really, you have all these interviews coming at you. So you want to be in a position, you want to be running for a position that you feel comfortable with. And not because you're escalating the bar, right? You're doing state Senate and then you're running for Congress. No, hombre, just run for what you feel comfortable. If it's Congress, you run for Congress. If it's city council, you run for it. You want to be mayor? Go for it. I don't believe in that, that you have to go through a chain. It helps sometimes, yes, because it builds your coalition and all that, but we don't have a lot of time on our duty stations. So I would say just run for what you want to do. That would be that was a little long.
That's good. And I think we talk about that in the guide, and there's actually an exercise in there to help folks think about what does matter to you, because I think it will, like you're saying, it will become apparent when you start talking and doing interviews. If you're really interested in Parks and Rec and you're running for the Senate, there's just going to be a disconnect there. So thinking about what matters to you, what are you passionate about, what do you do, and matching up the office to all of that is really important. So no, I think that's a great answer. And I think that's it as far as questions. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So with that, we'll say thank you very much, Tatiana. And I hope it's not too long before we can see each other in real life again, in person, maybe in DC, sooner rather than
Yay!
So
I'm excited. So excited.
And please tune in on the 30th for our discussion on COVID.
I want to say thank you. Thank you. I see so many familiar faces. Oh my goodness. You guys rock. All of you. Thank you, Libby.
Thanks, Tatiana. Bye-bye.